Hi friends, today let us discuss explanation for test 4. We conducted test 4 on paper 2 section A, that means the first 5 chapters of paper 2. In this test also I have given short answer questions and long answer questions without any choice. Only in the last 2 grand tests the question paper will be along the lines of UPSC. That means choice will be there. Okay, whatever it may be. Now let us discuss first the short answer questions. The first question is ethnoarchaeology. The first question is ethnoarchaeology. Here, this is a 10 marks question. Here, I did not mention specifically anything, just I gave the term ethnoarchaeology. Then you have to write something about ethnoarchaeology which is comprehensive. Then you have to give the definition of ethnoarchaeology. After that, the basis of ethnoarchaeology. The base of ethnoarchaeology is the concept of survivals and parallels. After that, you have to explain the scope of ethnoarchaeology. And finally, you have to write the drawback of ethnoarchaeology. First, you have to write the definition. Archaeology means we are going to study the historical artifacts. Ethnography means the study of living cultures. Now we are combining both. That means study of living cultures in order to understand the culture of the past societies. Study of the living cultures in order to understand the culture of the past societies. That is the definition. After that, you have to write the concept of survivals and parallels. You have to write what is meant by survivals and what is meant by parallels. In theory section, I have discussed the concept of survivals and parallels and the scope. How we are using the study of present cultures in order to understand the history of past cultures. How we reconstructed the culture of Paleolithic period, the culture of Mesolithic period, the culture of Neolithic period. Like that, we reconstructed. Of course, based on the evidences obtained by us at different archaeological sites, we directly interpreted. But certain drawbacks, certain gaps in the reconstruction of the culture of the past societies were filled by using the concept of survivals and parallels. Some students mention like this: study of the present primitive societies in order to understand the past societies. We are going to study not only the primitive societies but also advanced societies. In order to understand the Indus Valley civilization, we are identifying the parallel societies in the Gujarat. Based on the study of that parallel society, we reconstructed to some extent the culture of Indus Valley civilization, especially the bead making industry. That's why don't use the term only primitive societies. Of course, majority of the times we may be studying the tribal cultures, the present tribal cultures, in order to understand the past cultures. Once upon a time, all the cultures are tribal cultures. Paleolithic period, Mesolithic period, Neolithic period. That's why you may have that impression. But here in ethnoarchaeology, we are going to study not only the primitive societies but also other societies in order to understand the culture of the past societies. Some students, they committed this mistake. That's why I am specifying it. And after that, drawbacks. Based on the study of parallel societies, we are going to predict this might be the culture of the past societies. Might be. That means it is not conclusive. That is the drawback of ethnoarchaeology. It is not conclusive. Probability. This is the drawback. In your answer, these 4 subheadings must be there whenever a question is asked on ethnoarchaeology for 10 marks questions. So far, all the questions on ethnoarchaeology are for 10 marks only. If you know these components, so far on ethnoarchaeology, 3 times or 4 times questions were asked. But for all the questions, there is same answer. Once they ask specifically the scope of ethnoarchaeology. Once they mention directly ethnoarchaeology. That's why if you know these components, that is sufficient. I have seen in some of the Telegram groups an ethnoarchaeology 30-40 pages of material, but all those materials are not necessary. So far as the history of UPSC is concerned, all the questions are from these dimensions only: definition, the basis, scope of ethnoarchaeology, and finally the drawback of ethnoarchaeology. I explained this topic to some extent in detail. Of course, I did not discuss the examples. Why? Because many students are committing mistake in this area. Now let us discuss the next question, and that is runas. Runas. See, in different textbooks, for your understanding, they are textbooks. For your understanding, they will explain about Hindu philosophy and the runas, all those things. In the examination, you need not to discuss like that. Directly give the definition of runas. According to traditional Indian philosophy, every Hindu is born with certain debts which he has to pay in his lifetime. That's it. Some students, they wrote a number of things. Of course, they are correct, but not necessary. Every Hindu is socialized in such a way that he or she finds himself or herself under some obligations towards the members of his or her family and other members of the society. All those things are not necessary. Just write like this: according to traditional Indian philosophy or traditional Hindu philosophy, every Hindu is born with certain debts which he has to pay in his lifetime. These debts are called runas. What are those runas? You have to write. That means in your answer, first definition must be there. After that, you have to write what you have to mention. What are those runas? What are those runas types? You need not how many runas are there? 4 runas are there. You need not to mention all those 4 runas separately. Directly put subheadings. What are those runas? Daivaruna, Pitraruna, Gururuna, and Atitiruna. It is better to write in the same sequence: Daivaruna, Pitraruna, Gururuna, and Atitiruna. Under each subheading, mention them like this: subheadings. You have to write 2 components. What is the meaning of Daivaruna and how to pay that Daivaruna? You know very well what is meant by all these runas and how to pay. That's why I am not going to explain. But under each subheading, these 2 points must be there. What is the meaning of that runa and how to pay that runa? After writing those types of runas, you have to write the significance. What is the significance of runas? See, because of promotion of these runas in our society, there will be promotion of harmony in the society. Healthy social order will be created. Healthy social order can be created. That's why you need not explain how healthy social order will be created. Just by promoting Daivaruna, don't use the term promoting, by inculcating these runas in the minds of the people strongly during the process of socialization, our Hindu philosophical thinkers tried to bring about a healthy social order. Underline healthy social order or simply social harmony. In your answer, these components must be there. Okay. In the examination, your answer must be channelized with a proper structure. Definition, types, under types also again subheadings. Under each subheading, what is meant by it and how to pay. Okay. See here, consider Daivaruna. It is the debt one owes towards gods and goddesses. Simple. After writing that statement, it will be paid or it can be paid by It can be paid. After writing the definition, you have to write like this. It can be paid. There are number of ways of paying the Viruna. Then write all those ways in the form of points one after another. Then those points will be clearly visible. It can be paid by performing yajnas, by reciting Vedas. Like this, write one after another. Okay. Yajna, sacrifices, recitation of Vedas, singing songs, dancing, prardhana, patana, like this, like that. You can write a number of things, but write all those ways one after another in the form of points. Then your points will be clearly visible to the examiner. Then examiner feels comfortable, and at the same time he will give more marks. In fact, he will get very good impression after seeing the way of presentation of the answer. Because of that good impression, instead of giving 7 marks, he may give 8 marks. Understood? That is very, very important. The next question is M.N. Srinivas. See, in this question, I did not specify anything about M.N. Srinivas, just I gave the term M.N. Srinivas. So far in the history of UPSA regarding the anthropologists, 2 types of questions were given. What are those questions? See, M.N. Srinivas. Just they will give the name of any one anthropologist. Now I gave M.N. Srinivas. But in the examination they may give any one of the anthropologists. Now, here, please remember, if there is any anthropologist in news, go through the newspaper articles, whether it can be Rai Burman or some other anthropologist, because such type of questions may be asked. And don't blame the concerned teachers or faculty for not teaching so and so topic. Why? Because based on current affairs, sometimes questions may be asked. Recently, one question was given. I forgot the name of anthropologist. Robert Brucefield, I think. Robert Brucefield. I did not remember his name. In Karnataka, near Ballari, one museum was opened, anthropological museum. It was there in news at one corner, small paragraph in the newspaper. And to that anthropological museum, the name of one American anthropologist was given. That's why one question was given, the contribution of Robert Brucefield. Like this, questions may be asked. That's why please be attentive. If there is name of any anthropologist in news, go through that article. Okay, forget about it. Now, 2 types of questions are possible. In the short answer questions, they will give like this. Directly they will give the name of the anthropologist. In the long answer questions, they will specifically mention, explain the contribution of M.N. Srinivas to the growth of anthropology in India, or to the understanding of the caste system in India, or to the understanding of the society in India. Like this, they will specify. See, in 10 marks questions, they will not specify. Just they will give the name of the anthropologist. Whenever they give the name of any anthropologist for 10 marks like this, then you have to write like this. His academic career. After that, you have to write about his professional career. In professional career, you have to write again 2 components. Their important works. In case of M.N. Srinivas, dominant caste, village studies, sensitization, westernization, like that are different concepts. And at the same time, important positions held. By holding important positions also, some anthropologists contributed for the growth of anthropology in India. Anthropological Survey of India was established because of the efforts of B.S. Guha. B.S. Guha gave racial classification also. And by promoting the establishment of Anthropological Survey of India, he contributed for the development of anthropology in India. Like that, consider another thing. I'll tell you. Consider Sarath Chandra Rai, S.C. Rai. Sarath Chandra Rai, he established one gender, man in India. Through that gender, he contributed a lot. And by holding different positions, they contributed, like that S.C. Rai and many other people, they contributed for the growth of anthropology. By becoming the president of anthropology section in the Indian Science Congress, they contributed for the growth of anthropology. Like that, they may contribute. One person may contribute, one person may not contribute. But in your answer, these points must be there. Important works and important positions held, and thereby his contribution. Your answer must consist of these subheadings. You can write like this: education. After that, professional career, important work studied, important works, and at the same time important positions held, and thereby their contribution. Like this, they in your answer must have these components. Okay, and sometimes in the long answer question, see here the important works of M.N. Srinivas are sensitization, westernization and dominant caste, society and religion. Like this, village studies, he contributed a lot. But the same question, now in 10 marks question, the question is like this: for 10 marks, we are writing academic career, we are writing about a professional career. Now in 20 marks questions or in 15 marks questions, they will specify only this. Discuss or explain the contribution of M.N. Srinivas to the development of anthropology or to the understanding of society in India. Then you have to explain those concepts. Different concepts introduced by M.N. Srinivas, and you have to explain the significance. He introduces so and so concept, this is the significance of that concept. Like that, elaborate description has to be given. Understood? How to write answer to a particular question. But for 10 marks question, you have to write like this. Understood? Okay. There are facts I am not going to explain. Where he studied sociology and how he became the faculty, what are the specialities of M.N. Srinivas, all those things, they are nothing but facts. I am not going to explain those facts. The next question is Mongoloid elements in India. Mongoloid elements in India. Almost all the students gave good answers. You have to write. India. In India, we can come across number of races. India is rich in different varieties of races. Out of those races, Mongoloid elements or Mongoloid race is just one race. It is characterized by so and so characteristics. Then you have to write the general characteristics. After writing general characteristics, you have to give the classification. Okay, Paleo-Mongoloid, Tibeto-Mongoloid. Like that, you have to write. In Paleo-Mongoloid, again, long-headed, broad-headed. Then give the examples or representatives. Okay. The next question is sacred complex. See, when you are writing answer to Mongoloid elements, you have to, after giving introduction, India is rich in the presence of different races. Out of those races, Mongoloid race is just one race. Mongoloid race is characterized by the following characteristics. After writing the general characteristics, draw the chart like this. Mongoloid elements are divided into two varieties, Paleo-Mongoloids and Tibeto-Mongoloids. Again, Paleo-Mongoloids are divided into two varieties, long-headed and broad-headed. Just give this chart. After giving this chart, then put subheadings. Long-headed Paleo-Mongoloid, broad-headed Paleo-Mongoloid, Tibeto-Mongoloids. Give their special characteristics. and after that give the examples for the representatives. Okay, chart is very important. Then the next question is impact of Buddhism on Indian society. This question can be asked for 10 marks or 15 marks or 20 marks. Impact of Buddhism on Indian society. All the students gave good answer to this question also. See, already I told you in the previous class also. Here the question is very clear. Impact of Buddhism. Some students they wrote about what are the principles of Buddhism or what are the doctrines of Buddhism. All those they are not necessary. If you want to mention all those things, just mention in the form of single line. That's it. Why? Because we have lot of content under this topic, impact of Buddhism. Then write like this: impact in the social sphere, impact in the economic sphere, impact in the political sphere, impact in the religious sphere, impact in the education and literature, impact on art and architecture. Like this, give subheadings. Under each subheading, impact in social life. Again, write what are the impacts. They gave a death blow to Brahmanism. They contributed for equality. Like that, you can write. Like this, under each and every subheading, write in the form of points. Write the impact in the form of points. Then examiner can easily identify the points, so that we will get very good marks. Then significance of village studies. The next question is significance of village studies. Significance means utility. See, because of village studies, we will get some data from the villages. Study means research only. Because of the data obtained, because of these village studies, we can understand their society, we can understand their social problems, the root causes of the social problems, and we can take the preventive measures or we can take rectifying measures. That's why ultimately you have to write like this. If you study the villages, the data obtained can be used for the development of, for the social, economic and political development of the villages. Then you have to write how the study of villages is useful for the social development, how it is useful for the economic development, how it is useful for political development, democratic decentralization, the need for democratic decentralization, the implementation of democratic decentralization, modifications or changes to be brought about in the democratic decentralization. Like that, you can write number of things. And finally, all those measures should not cause any disturbance to the culture of the people. Am I correct or not? Whatever may be the welfare measure, that welfare measure should not cause disturbance to the culture of the people. That's why here we'll understand the culture also. Ultimately, these four components you have to explain. You can use different subheadings for the social reconstruction of the rural India, for the economic development of rural India, not only rural India but also entire India. Why? Because in India, 70% of population is living in the villages. That's why if the villages are developed, automatically India will be developed. And for political development and empowerment, and for the understanding of the culture of the people, the culture of India lies in the villages. If you want to understand the Indian culture, you have to study the villages. If you understand, after writing this, you have to link it. If you understand the culture of the people, then we can take number of welfare measures for social, economic and political development without causing any disturbance to their cultural sentiments. Like that you have to write. Okay. Some people simply they wrote like this: it is useful for economic development, it can be, poverty can be eradicated, employment can be provided. How? You have to explain. If you study the villages, you can come to know about the social problems, the magnitude of the social problems, the root causes of the social problems. Then only we can take rectifying measures in order to deal with those social problems. Like that you have to explain how the village studies are useful for us to deal with so and so problem. Like that you have to link the points or link the village studies to so and so development. Understood? Many people simply they are writing like this. You should not write like that. Then the next question is problems of minorities. Everyone knows the problems of minorities. What is the main problem of minorities? Communal rights. Communal rights. Fear of insecurity. Discrimination. Then social backwardness. Then low literacy, inadequate representation in government services, then inadequate representation in politics. Some students they explain separately the problems of religious minorities, the problems of linguistic minorities. And there is also the correct way of representation. But this is 10 marks question. If you write like this, that is sufficient. Okay. These points must be there, or it's better to write in the form of subheadings. First subheading: communal rights, fear of insecurity, discrimination, social backwardness, low literacy, government, inadequate representation in the government services, and inadequate representation in politics. Then here, if we explain inadequate representation in literacy, that means in government services, in politics, and low literacy with recent figures, then that will fetch very good advantage to you in the exam. Okay. If there are reports, any government reports on the minorities, go through these aspects. What is their social position, economic position, political position? These are important. Social, economic, and political position, and educational position. Social position means sex ratio, all those things. Poverty, all those things. Now let us discuss the next question, that is role of media in social change. For this question, we can give answer in two ways: positive impacts and negative impacts. But in my opinion, if we give answer like this, anthropology, whenever we analyze the impact of any agent, whether it is a PRI or media or impact of industrialization, urbanization, generally we'll analyze like this: impact in social sphere, impact in economic sphere, impact in political sphere, impact in religious sphere, impact in education, impact in psychosocial impact in psychosocial aspects, like that. That's why my suggestion is better to write like this: role of media on social change, role of media on social change, impact on social life, economic life, political life, religious life, education. And because of media, there are number of changes in culture also, cultural homogenization. That's why cultural aspects and cultural and psychological aspects. Here again in the form of points. Don't write like this, subheadings. First subheading, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Again points, 1, 2, 3, 4, like this. Okay. These are short answer questions. Now let us discuss long answer questions. With respect to long answer questions, first question is: explain the impact of globalization on social relations in the villages. In the villages. See, here you have to identify that the question is on social relations, the impact of globalization on social relations. Some students they wrote in detail about the impact of globalization. It's not necessary for us. Here we have to write what is the impact of globalization on social relations, and that is important. You have to write those things only. Many students generally, it's not wrong, but it is wastage of your time. In the examination, time management is very, very important. What happened? Because of industrialization, because of establishment of industries, because of globalization, the ultimate result is industrialization. The industries started establishing industries in different industrial forces or different entrepreneurs started establishing industries by acquiring land in different rural areas because of acquisition of land, and at the same time because of pollutants released by the industries established, the agriculture was declined. Because of decline of agriculture, the dependence on the lower caste and the upper caste was decreased. Even today also, if you go to rural areas, majority of the land is under the control of upper caste. Because of this, the dominance of the upper caste was decreased. When the dominance of upper caste decreases, automatically what happens? The rigors of the caste system will be decreased. Am I correct or not? Untouchability, restrictions on commensality, restrictions on marriages, a number of aspects. Influence of caste councils, influence of panchayats, village panchayats, all those things. Am I correct or not? And at the same time, now the lower caste people as well as the upper caste people, because of decline of agriculture, they started migrating. And at the same time, because of establishment of industries in urban areas, because of globalization, industries are established not only in rural areas but also in urban areas, in all the places. Because of availability of employment opportunities, the people went to urban areas. They started working there as employees. In urban areas, importance will be given to skills. Achievement is more important rather than ascription. This way, the caste rigidities were decreased. There also achievements have become more important. Achievement orientation was developed. Because of development of achievement orientation, number of changes. What are those changes? Number of changes. Secondary relations were developed. That means lawyers association, doctors association, labor union, like these different secondary associations came into existence. Interpersonal relations have become highly superficial. The spirit of mutual help was decreased. Am I correct or not? Individualism was developed. The authority of the elders is decreased. Why? Because in the industrial areas, in order to get employment in different industries, you have to acquire skills from different sources. In the traditional Indian society, we used to follow the traditional occupations. Then we used to acquire the skills from our parents. That's why there was dependency of the children on the parents. Now there is no such dependency. That's why the importance of the elders is decreased. And it is going on. Am I correct or not? That means that the authority of the elders is decreased. When the authority of elders is decreased, then what happens? There will be increase in the love marriages. Whenever there is increase in the love marriages, there will be increase in the divorces. Am I correct or not? Most of the times. The divorce rate is more in love married couples when compared with arranged married couples. That is true. Okay, I don't want to discuss those details, not necessary also. See, understood. We have to write our answer from the perspective of social relations. Understood? That is important. The next question is, explain the factors affecting the growth and structure of the population. Here my question is, the factors affecting the growth and structure 2. Here you can write general answer, or you can write in this way: the factors influencing the growth of the population, the factors influencing the structure of the population. You can write in any manner, but my suggestion is better to give generalized answer. Parents are relatively peaceful conditions after the establishment of British authority. After that, improvement in medical knowledge, improvement in agriculture, industrialization, urbanization, and number of social factors, ineffective implementation of family planning, and lack of entertainment facilities in the rural areas. All those things you can mention, number of factors you can write. Or if you want to impress the examiner, or if you have more time in the examination, you can write like this: factors influencing the growth of the population, factors influencing the structure of the population. Again, you have to write the structure of the population varies depending upon the criterion taken by us. We can get different structures: age structure, sex structure, then occupational structure. What are the factors influencing the age structure? What are the factors influencing the sex structure? What are the factors influencing the occupational structure? You have to write. That means you have to write the factors influencing age structure, the factors influencing the sex structure, the factors influencing the occupational structure. Like that you have to explain. The next question is, Indian population represents rich biogenic variability. Discuss. See, my question is very clear. You also know very well answer to this question. Whenever the question is asked on biogenic variability, that is nothing but the question on racial classification. More than 50% of the students, not 50, more than 70% of the students, they give answer like this: Gauss classification or Risley's classification. According to Gauss classification, 6 racial elements are there. According to Risley's classification, 7 racial elements are there. Like that they started writing. You should not write like this. I told you in the previous class also, our introduction must be a connecting link between the question and the answer. Our introduction must be a connecting link between the question and the answer. See, here my question is, Indian population represents which biogenic variable to discuss. Then you have to write like this: biogenic variability will be manifested in the form of racial diversity. Biogenic variability will be manifested in the form of racial diversity. Whenever there are biogenic variations, that means genetic variations, then those variations will be manifest in the form of physical variations. Am I correct or not? People with a set of physical characteristics are called one race. But you need not explain all those things. You have to write like this: biogenic variability will be manifested in the society in the form of racial diversity. India is rich in biogenic variability. Why? Because in India number of races are there. Then you can write any one of the classifications, either Gauss classification or Risley's classification. You can write any one of the classifications. Either you write a Gauss classification or Risley's classification, both are going to get good marks. Okay, it depends upon your choice. Okay, I gave this question specifically to explain this. People, most of the times the people, they are not writing proper introduction. Simply they are giving classification. You have to write like this. And some students, they don't know what is meant by biogenic variability also. Okay. The next question is, define the Jasmine system, discuss the characteristics of Jasmine system, add a note on its nature and present status. The question is very clear. You have to write the definition. As it was asked specifically about the definition of Jasmine system, you have to write at least one, if possible 2 or 3. What is the definition of Jasmine system? It is an interfamilial intercaste relationship pertaining to the patterning of superordinate and subordinate relations between the patrons and suppliers of the services. Am I correct or not? Like that, you can give the definitions. There are a number of definitions. In our material also I have given 3 definitions. You can write those definitions. But this is the popular definition. It is an intercaste interfamilial relationship pertaining to the patterning of superordinate and subordinate relationship. Okay. After that, characteristics you have to write. After that, add a note on its nature. With regard to the nature of Jasmine system, there are 2 views. One is exploitative, second one is non-exploitative. According to some anthropologists, Jasmine system is exploitative. According to some other anthropologists, it is non-exploitative. You have to write by mentioning the names of some anthropologists. According to so and so anthropologists, it is exploitative because of these reasons. But according to so and so anthropologists, it is non-exploitative because of these reasons. You have to write. After that, comment on its present status. The Jasmine system has been gradually declining. That is the present status. We can come across Jasmine system even today also, but here and there in some remote corners of the country. Just if you write just that line, that is not sufficient. Why it is declining? You have to write those factors also. Monetization of the economy, emergence of commercial attitude, capital, introduction of capital economy, availability of credit in the rural areas, availability of ready-made goods, weakening of association between caste and occupation, migration of the lower caste people from the rural areas to urban areas, like that number of factors are there. You can write all those things. Okay. The next question is, explain the role of American anthropologists in the growth of anthropology in India. See, ultimately, whenever we are studying growth of anthropology in India, we are going to study only two things: growth of tribal studies and growth of village studies. Growth of tribal studies and growth of village studies. See, growth of anthropology in India can be divided into growth of tribal studies, growth of village studies. With respect to the growth of tribal studies, we can divide the growth into three phases: formative phase, constructive phase, and analytical phase. With respect to village studies, also formative phase, constructive phase, and analytical phase. Now, if you know this classification, you can write an answer to those questions. Any question. Growth of anthropology, you can write. Growth of tribal studies, you can write. Growth of village studies, you can write. See, with respect to tribal studies and with respect to village studies, the analytical phase was started after independence. After independence, the contacts of Indian anthropologists with American anthropologists were increased. That's why in the analytical phase, the contribution by American anthropologists can be seen. In the formative and constructive phase, the contribution is by European anthropologists, especially British anthropologists only. That's why questions can be asked in any manner. Explain the contribution of British anthropologists to the growth of anthropology in India. Then you have to write formative phase and constructive phase of tribal studies. Explain the growth of British anthropologists. Then you have to write a formative and constructive phase of tribal studies, formative and constructive phase of village studies. And if the question is asked, explain the contribution of American anthropologists to the growth of anthropology in India, then you have to write analytical phase of tribal studies, analytical phase of village studies. The only American anthropologist who contributed for the growth of village studies in the constructive period is nothing but William Weiser. Jasmine system. If you know this structure, you can write answer to any question. And around generally, there is a constructive phase, either in tribal studies or in village studies. It began in the second decade of 20th century, and 1918, 1920, like that. According to different anthropologists, we have difference of opinions. We are not going to discuss those things. In between 1910 to 1920, the constructive phase began with respect to tribal studies, with respect to village studies. That means constructive phase and analytical phase in tribal studies, constructive phase and analytical phase in village studies are in the 20th century. Sometimes questions may be asked. Explain the growth of anthropology in India in the 20th century. Explain the contribution of 18th and 19th century anthropologists for the growth of anthropology in India. 18th and 19th means we have to write formative phase only. In the tribal studies, in the village studies. 20th century anthropologists means constructive phase and analytical phase in the tribal studies, constructive phase and analytical phase in the village studies. I have explained the same in detail, and you can come across this topic, a video lecture on this topic in our app itself. In our app, in the free study material section, if you go through the videos, there is one video on the growth of anthropology. There I explained everything in detail. I request you to go through that video also. For about 1 hour I explain. It's not possible for me to explain in detail here. But if you know this structure, you can answer any question. Now see, growth of anthropology in India, growth of tribal studies in India, growth of village studies in India, contribution of British anthropologists, contribution of American anthropologists, contribution of 18th and 19th century anthropologists, contribution of 18th and 19th century anthropologists, contribution of 20th century anthropologists. That's why this structure is very, very important. Go through that video. Okay, in our app, in the free study material section, in the videos part, you can come across the growth of anthropology. The next question is, or you can write like this. You can mention the name of some anthropologists and their contribution one after another. You can write in any manner, but if you write in the form of these subheadings, then that will be very good answer. The next question is, define NMS complex, discuss the significance of NMS complex. See, many students, they wrote in detail about the NMS complex, nature detailed explanation, man detailed explanation, spirit detailed explanation. Those things are not required. The question is, define NMS complex. You have to give the definition. That is the first thing. Second one is, discuss the significance of NMS complex. Here in the definition, there is nothing to explain. You have to give the definition. That's it. Just 2 lines. After that, it is a complex arising out of man's close interaction with and dependence on nature and the spirits. Very simple definition. After that, here definition is only 2 or 3 lines. But this is a 20 marks question. That means I am expecting more explanation from you with regard to significance. Instead of writing significance, all the students, 90% students, they gave detailed explanation about nature, man, spirit complex with beautiful diagrams also. Not necessary. I am expecting more explanation with regard to significance. Almost entire answer, I am correct on definition, just 3 lines. That means the remaining answer I am expecting on the significance. Here, if possible, explain with the help of case studies or examples. See, the significance of NMS complex. It is useful for us for the planning of different varieties of welfare measures. With some examples, it is useful for us for the implementation of different varieties of welfare measures. It is useful for us for the exploitation of the natural resources, judicious exploitation of natural resources. Explain with some examples. Tribal conflicts, all those things. Tribal conflicts, Naxal conflicts, Naxal government conflicts. Tribal conflicts means a tribal government, Naxal government conflicts, all those things. Like that, with the help of examples, as maximum number of examples as possible. See, in number of interviews also, many rankers, they told like this, we wrote about case studies. It doesn't mean that we have to write case studies everywhere. Relevance is very, very important. In this case, you have to write more case studies. Okay. The next question is, explain the impact of Christianity on Indian society. This is also a right question. Same pattern you have to follow. The Christianity has profound impact on Indian society. It influenced each and every sphere of Indian society. Then, write like this: impact on social sphere, impact on economic sphere, impact on political sphere, impact on religious sphere, impact on education, impact on medicine especially, impact on medicine, impact on language, impact on architecture, all those things you have to write. 2 impacts, but very significant impacts. What are those impacts? English. Nowadays everywhere English. Without knowing English, it's impossible to get jobs in organized sector. Am I correct or not? And almost majority of the hospitals in India are allopathic hospitals. Allopathy is the contribution of Christianity. Of course, Britishers and other Europeans. But it's not possible for us to separate the influence of Britishers and Christianity, because Britishers are Christians. That's why you have to write by using those subheadings. Content everyone knows, I am not going to explain. The next question is, discuss the contribution of tribal cultures to the Vedic civilization. Here also the same. Tribal cultures contributed to the Vedic civilization in almost all the spheres of the Vedic life, with respect to social life, with respect to ethnic identities, with respect to economic life, with respect to political life, with respect to religious life, with respect to music, with respect to Ayurveda or medicine. You can write number of things. Under the social sphere, Gotra system was contributed by those people. Bride price system contributed by those people. Marriage by exchange, cross cousin marriages are contributed by those people. That means those elements were adopted by the Vedic people after coming into contact with these tribal people. Ethnic identities, they lost their ethnic identity. Acculturation, exchange of cultural aspects, and assimilation of Naga tribe. And in some tribes, the chiefs were absorbed into the Hinduism. Aryanization of Dravidians, Dravidization of Aryans, we can come across. With respect to economic sphere, iron smelting technology was copied by the Aryans from a tribe by name Asurans. Different varieties of agricultural implements they contributed. And different varieties of rituals for the sake of proper cultivation, for the sake of proper harvest. And with respect to political sphere, they contribute number of things. Chiefdom, nobles, number of tribal chiefs became the nobles in the courts of Hindu rulers. Chiefdom system was contributed by the tribal people to the Vedic civilization. Sabha system, Samiti system, they contributed. Even the tribal people gave a lot of help to the rulers at the time of wars. They helped in spying activities. Number of aspects. With respect to religious aspects, see, here the Vedic people, they adopted a number of religious aspects from the tribal people. Actually, a number of texts, sacred texts of Hinduism were written by tribal people only. Ramayana, Valmiki, he is a tribal person. Gayatri Mantra, Vishwamitra, he is also a tribal person. Number of gods of Hinduism, Lord Venkateshwara, Puri Jagannatha, Ayyappa Swami, all these are the tribal gods actually. Like this, they contribute. And Atharvana Veda. In Atharvana Veda, number of magical spells are there. Those magical spells were copied by the Vedic people or Aryans from the tribal people. Like this, number of impacts with respect to music, the non-note in Sarigama Padanisa, the ni or non-note is from tribal societies. Veena, the stringed instruments, musical instrument, is from the tribal people. Ayurveda system, it is from the tribal people. Like this, number of aspects. You can write, see, you have to put subheadings, and read subheading again points, first point, second point, third point, like this. Like this in the form of points. If you write like this, you will get very good marks. Okay. This is about explanation for test 4.